So for this week's vlog, I'm going to be talking about the book Push by Sapphire. And so far I'm about halfway through the book, and so there's just a few things I want to touch on. So to start off, I wanted to compare Push to Gentrification of the Mind. The first thing I noticed right off the bat, both of these books were taking place in New York during around the 1980s. And I will be honest, I like this book a lot more. The theme I got from Gentrification of the Mind, it was kind of her helping other people. And then for this book, I see it more of her helping herself. And this is just from her point of view, and it's kind of her life story. So I think that's why I'm more drawn to it, is it's like her day by day, what she did, how she got out of her lifestyle and everything, compared to Gentrification of the Mind, which was a lot more broad, and it just kind of jumped around to a lot more different aspects. It didn't really focus on one certain thing. And so one thing I wanted to touch on too, which I think is part, like, what I got out of the book, kind of a huge aspect, was how one person changed Precious's life, like, all around. She totally flipped it upside down. And that person for her was Miss Rain, who was her teacher. And I just think this is something that it's not just something you see in a book or a movie. I think this is something that happens in everyday life. And I think every person who goes through some sort of education has that one teacher that sticks with them and inspires them to keep going or being the best that they can be, or helps them in those tough situations. So it was really awesome to see that Precious finally meets that person for her, and that's who gets her life back on track. So the moment she meets Miss Rain, and she kind of talks about how much she adores Miss Rain and how she's helping her, it kind of made me think of one part in my life. It was actually my senior year of high school. In my AP literature class, we had to get in a circle, and we had to go around and say our favorite teacher that we've ever had. And 5 people in my class said the same exact teacher. We all had this teacher in the 1st and 2nd grade together. And her name was Miss Reifenrath. And when I read this moment that Precious knew that this was her teacher that was going to help her, I instantly thought back to the moment that just 5 of us said that our 2nd grade teacher was that teacher for us. And that's kind of what I mean when I say everyone has that person that influences them. Obviously, I was in 2nd grade. I was 7 years old, but that person was my person, and that teacher was 5 other people's persons just in my English Lit class alone. So I think it just shows how big of an impact one person can truly have. And for a lot of those people, it pushes them to be better than what they are, and it pushes them to achieve higher. And it was just kind of cool to see that relate back to my life, even though we were in totally different circumstances. We all have that one person, so that was cool to see. And so one quote I wanted to analyze was on page 40, and she says, "I take in air through my nose, a big, big breath. Then I start to walk slow to the back. But something like birds or light fly through my heart, and my feet stop at first row. And for the first time in my life, I sit down in the front row." So that right there just shows what a big step Precious took. She realizes going into this new classroom, this new school, she's not going to go back to where she was. And it may seem so insignificant to so many people that she sat front row, but like, how many people like to sit front row? You go into lectures at Michigan State that are full of 600 people, and almost everyone sits towards the back still. It's not easy to be that person that sits up front, especially in her situation. So for that, I think that was one of the biggest points that she made during this first half of this book, is that in that moment, she decided that from here on out, her life was only going to go up. And so after reading that she finally sits front row for the first time, it made me go back, and on page 5, there's another quote. She says, "I'm going to break through, or somebody's going to break through me. I'm going to learn, catch up, be normal, change my seat to the front of the class." But again, it has not been that day. And so obviously page 5, very beginning of the book, it shows her, and I think the 9th grade. She's sitting in math class, but she says she just can't do it. She's not there yet. She can't sit in the front of the class, even though she struggles sitting in the back. She just doesn't have it in her to sit in the front. And so obviously knowing that in the beginning, she's completely illiterate. She obviously didn't write this book as it went on. She kind of went back and kind of went through the motions of it. So I was kind of wondering if she put that quote on page 5, just so you would think, is she going to sit in the front row? So I think she kind of foreshadows that she's going to sit in the front row someday. And she knows she is, obviously. And it just isn't that time yet. And I think it kind of, between page 5 and page 40 is the buildup of her finally getting the courage to come out and make her life better than it is right now. One other thing I wanted to touch on is Precious actually refers back to the book The Color Purple a lot. And this was a book that I had to read in my AP literature class. And it's another awesome book. So I would recommend, if other students are watching this, that if you liked this book, that you should read that book. So it's cool to see that she kind of saw herself in that book. And I think everyone needs to kind of have something like that you can see yourself, oh yeah, that was me. She did it. I can do it type of situation, whether that's someone you look up to or someone you read in a book or see in a movie. But I think that also kind of helped Precious kind of get out of the situation she was in, was knowing that someone else did it, she can do it. Even though she kind of gets offended that someone compares her to or that she sees herself as the main character because she didn't think that she was. She knew that she had the same type of situations. And so it was really cool to see how she referred back to another book that I also really like. And so far, I really enjoyed this book. I'll probably finish it tomorrow. And I'm super excited to see where it takes me. And then I'm hoping after this to watch the movie Precious. I have yet to see that. And so I'm looking forward to that as well.